John Brown was a man of stark contrasts and complex legacy, an intricate figure whose actions and motivations continue to stir debate among historians and scholars. Was he a martyr, willing to lay down his life for the noble cause of abolishing slavery? Or was he a terrorist whose zeal led him to commit violent acts that cost lives and sowed fear? To label John Brown simply as one or the other may be an oversimplification of a man who lived at the stormy intersection of a deeply divided country's morals and laws. Let's explore the life and legacy of John Brown, set against the backdrop of America's turbulent mid-19th century landscape. Born in 1800, John Brown was raised in a fervently religious family that despised the institution of slavery. His Calvinist upbringing instilled in him a belief in predestination and the idea that God had a divine plan which included the end of slavery. Brown interpreted this belief personally, considering himself chosen to act as God's instrument to abolish slavery. John Brown's foray into the abolitionist movement was marked by two disparate methods: fierce advocacy and violent action. He first gained national attention during the Bleeding Kansas crisis in the mid-1850s. Kansas was the battleground where pro-slavery and anti-slavery forces clashed over whether the territory would enter the Union as a free or slave state. Brown's response to the sacking of the abolitionist town of Lawrence by pro-slavery forces was the Pottawatomie massacre, where he and his followers killed 5 pro-slavery settlers. This act of brutal retaliation exposed the paradox at the heart of Brown's fight against slavery: his view that the immorality of slavery justified the use of immoral means for its abolition. Brown's most notable endeavor was his raid on Harpers Ferry in 1859. He aimed to seize the federal arsenal, arm slaves, and spark a slave uprising across the South. The raid failed. Brown was captured, convicted of treason against the Commonwealth of Virginia, and hanged. Brown's final words, powerful and prophetic, seemed to foreshadow the imminent Civil War. I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away, but with blood. In assessing John Brown's legacy, let's consider the arguments for both interpretations: martyr and terrorist. John Brown as a martyr. To his supporters, Brown was a courageous martyr who saw the fundamental injustice of slavery when many in the country were still willing to accept compromise and half measures. He was lauded as a man of action in an era when the political process failed to address the moral abomination of slavery effectively. His raid on Harpers Ferry, while militarily unsuccessful, was a catalyst that exacerbated sectional tensions and ultimately helped ignite the Civil War, which resulted in the emancipation of slaves. Brown's commitment to his cause was unwavering, and his willingness to suffer the ultimate penalty became an inspiration for many, both contemporaries and future generations. The transcendentalist poet Henry David Thoreau compared Brown's execution to the crucifixion of Christ, illustrating the depth of admiration felt by some toward Brown. John Brown as a terrorist. Conversely, critics of Brown paint him as a terrorist, emphasizing that his methods were violent and struck fear into the hearts of many, especially in the South. The Pottawatomie massacre and the raid on Harpers Ferry are cited as acts of terror. The former was a premeditated execution of unarmed men suspected of supporting slavery, and the latter was an assault on a federal installation that put civilian lives at risk. For those who view Brown in this light, his actions destabilized society and bypassed the rule of law, setting a dangerous precedent. His militancy and the radicalism of his methods alienated potential allies in the North and hardened pro-slavery sentiment in the South. Brown's readiness to use violence conflicted with the nonviolent reform ethos championed by many other abolitionists, causing divisions among them. Complexity of Brown's figure. To truly understand John Brown, one must navigate the complex ethical terrain of a nation barreling toward its most catastrophic conflict. Brown emerges as a man of contradictions, a deeply religious individual who believed he was doing God's will, yet chose the path of violence. A figure both vilified and revered, seen as both principled and fanatical. What remains unassailable in this narrative is Brown's commitment to the cause of ending slavery, a cause for which he was willing to die. The challenge with John Brown is that his life forces us to confront unsettling questions about the nature of justice and the limits of moral action. When is it right to take up arms for a cause? To what extent do the ends justify the means? Is violence in the service of justice ever justifiable? These questions, which Brown's actions impelled his contemporaries to grapple with, continue to resonate in modern discussions of civil disobedience and armed resistance. John Brown's actions can be understood as a reflection of the times, a period of moral tumult and political impasse. The conventional methods of reform, including nonviolent activism and political dialogue, had failed to address the systemic cruelty and inhumanity of slavery. In this context, Brown's resort to violence, though controversial, reflects a sense of desperation and a belief that drastic action was the only remaining path to change. Thank you guys for watching. If you want more videos like this, make sure to like the video and hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next video.